Smile is basically the perfect movie to go see with anyone you're trying to get close to, and essentially the worst movie you could ever see if you have panic attacks, because it'll give you 1,000 reasons to jump either into each other's arms or right into a stretcher. There are so many jump scares. Like almost every scary moment is capped off with a jump scare, like a neat little bow. But basically every other scene serves to set up the inevitable jump scare that will come, and trust me, they will come. You cannot escape them. They are in damn near every scene. And the problem is that in a movie full of jump scares, well, they kind of lose their luster at some point and become kind of expected, which could dampen the overall experience. And I guess it kind of does in a way, because you really start expecting them, but not enough to distract me from the insane story that's put on display here, and just unsettling, just creepy feeling that comes with this movie. We basically follow a psychiatrist who gets cursed by some kind of trauma demon, it seems like, as the creature jumps from one victim to the next by inflicting severe trauma to people while controlling his victims. This entity manifests itself as smiling people that just stare, and it's either really unsettling or really funny, I guess, to some people. I don't know, maybe I should have asked the people in my theater why they were laughing. Anyway, if everything in this movie seems kind of familiar, well, I think it's because this isn't necessarily the most revolutionary idea of all time. It's kind of like if It Follows and Truth or Dare had a baby, but it's actually way better than at least one of its parents. I'll let you guess which one, and the other, well, that's kind of up to your interpretation. Despite the fact that it isn't reinventing the wheel, it does everything pretty much as best as it could. While it may not be the most technical of movies out there, there's some really cool camera work with the upside down shots, which were a tad overused for my taste. Like, I get it, you know, they're going in hell, they're turning the world upside down, whatever, I get it. Some cool VFX shots as well, with like passing through glass and stuff like that. Obviously, all the later stuff in the movie is also really cool. Like, there's a lot of good in this movie. Another very good aspect of that is it stays entertaining basically the whole way through. And I think that's a truly underappreciated aspect of filmmaking at this point. You can make your movie as artsy as you want, as beautiful, as everything that you want. But bro, if I'm bored, yeah, I'll appreciate it in retrospect and be like, oh my god, yeah, that was such a cool idea and blah 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 and shit. But while it was happening, motherfucker, I was bored. This movie thankfully just basically goes at 100 the whole way through and doesn't really give you a moment to rest, which I guess it could be a bad thing or a good thing. I think it was a good thing, although it kind of got me fucked up at some points, but it is what it is. There's a bunch of time skips throughout, and it feels like we're spending weeks at the very least witnessing the changes that our main character is going through, because she also like is rapidly changing from how she is at the beginning to, you know, whichever jump you go to at different points of the movie. Like, she looks drastically different. But towards the end of the movie, it's actually revealed that it's like only been 4 days, and I guess it's not revealed, it's not really a secret, but it feels like so much longer. But then they actually just say it, they're like, yeah, it's only been 4 days. And it's crazy because if it can be turned into a jump scare, I mean, if it doesn't help push the plot forward, they simply do not show it. The main character is also pretty good in this movie. I honestly don't know what more she could have done in her situation. There wasn't really a time where I thought that what she was doing was because a dude wrote it to be so. Her actions felt pretty natural. So good job, because horror movie protagonists usually have to be like literally some of the stupidest people on the planet for the plot to move forward. So it's cool to see a movie where that isn't necessarily happening. Not saying it happens in every movie, but, you know, happens in a little too many of them if you ask me. Probably my favorite thing though in this movie would have to be the constant expectations inversion, which is literally riddled throughout the entire movie. You start getting to a point where you don't even know what's real and what isn't, and that's exactly what the main character is going through, and it's fun to also try to figure out if what she's seeing is real, or if it's just the demon slash entity slash whatever fucking with her. I think it was really interesting the way that they did it. Again, not revolutionary, but for some reason, I personally did not expect them to do that, because it did not seem like it was going to be the type of movie where she was like hallucinating shit. I also really like the finale, and I'll go into it a little bit, so you can skip to here if you don't want to hear it, but I really like how the entity couldn't be beaten in the end. Sure, it makes for a fucking bleak ending, but so is the whole movie, to be honest. There's this like constant feel of uneasiness that's just oozing out of every scene, and the ending, in my opinion, should match that. It shouldn't turn into this typical horror movie where everything can be fixed because the protagonist is the chosen one or some shit that cracked the code on how to defeat the creature. Instead, this is a situation where our character seems to go through the same shit that all the other victims went through, and when she thinks that she finally defeated it, using the knowledge that she sort of gained from all the others, and also because she faced her past trauma, which seemed to be the cause of everything, as it was like a shared trait amongst all the victims. They also all had past trauma. She thinks that she figured it out, but it's like, no. Nobody ever said that dealing with trauma would make the monster go away. No one ever even said that the monster can only be transmitted through trauma. These were all assumptions made by the main characters based on observations that weren't random, but you didn't actually know. So to base your entire hypothesis on what you think without actually knowing, well, it caused the character's downfall, and I think it makes sense. And I love that right at the very end you realize that there was nothing she really could have even done. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie, and although it isn't the best horror movie ever, I feel like it has multiple things going for it, and I feel like the only real problem that it has is that it has a million jump scares, but somehow I'm not the biggest fan of jump scares, especially when they're riddled throughout the movie to this extent. But it's actually creepy even without the jump scares. It's a weird thing where this movie manages to be scary with no jump scares, but the main scare factor of this movie are the jump scares. It's weird. I feel like you have to see it to understand what I mean. Because no matter what you think, I think this movie has enough to at least be very memorable. I would give it a grade of 8. This might seem a little high because, again, I stated multiple times that to me, jump scares just really aren't it. And I prefer movies without them, or at least with a small quantity of them. But I don't know, man, this movie is just really unsettling, even with all the extra bullshit.